This is TWiT.
I don't know if you heard, but there has been a historic win for Kickstarter employees. So, there are a lot of tech companies that have looked at unionizing and looked at trying to make that happen. But Kickstarter has actually, the employees there have actually made this a success. And joining us today from Vice's Motherboard is Lauren Gurley to talk about it. So welcome, Lauren. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so excited. So let's first talk about, I'm curious, these are often long uphill battles that certainly take time and involve legal matters and conversations, and we've seen different media companies that have the employees have tried to unionize, and those things happen very publicly. I haven't heard a whole lot about the Kickstarter stuff, so I'm curious, when did this sort of kick off? How long has this process been going on? And what were kind of the results as we came down to the win to union?
Yeah, so going back to August 2018, Kickstarter, which, as you probably all know, is a platform where people or creators can, crowdfund projects, creative projects like videos or books or gadgets. Back in August of 2018, there was a project on the platform called Always Punch Nazis that was put up. It was a comic book, and it was basically sort of a retelling of racism, the history of racism in the United States. The alt-right news platform Breitbart came out and said that this comic book was inciting violence and going against Kickstarter's terms of service, and demanded that they take it down. And management was like, all right, we'll take it down. And employees got really upset about this because it was sort of, conceding to the Nazi sympathizers. At that point, workers started, talking about unionizing. And in March of 2019, last year, they went public with their campaign. As maybe people didn't expect, because Kickstarter sort of presents itself as a very progressive company. Management came out and said that we don't want a union here. A union isn't right for us. You guys are paid well. It would sort of create tensions between management and workers that we don't need. Then there's many months of union organizing, trying to get organizers talking to employees, trying to get them on their side. In September, something really dramatic happened. The company fired 2 of the core union organizers. They said for performance issues, but workers felt like they were being retaliated against for union organizing. And then it just this whole wave of sort of drama unfolded, leading up to Tuesday, a couple of days ago, when the union, they voted in January, and then on Tuesday at the NLRB, which is the National Labor Review Board, in downtown Brooklyn, I was there. They counted the votes. It was extremely dramatic. People were sort of gripping their seats, and at the very end, it was clear that they were going to win. They won 46-37, which is pretty close, and people were, crying. It was. They felt like history was made, because these are the first white-collar tech workers, employees of a major tech company, to unionize in all of U.S. history.
Wow. So, you kind of talked a little bit about how Kickstarter sort of has tried to set itself apart from others. I think I know it's a public benefit corporation. I don't know if is it a certified B corporation, but essentially these companies, they are not for-profit companies, but instead are companies that are for-profit but still exist to benefit sort of humanity. And so they're, the social aspect of the company really sort of seemed to set itself apart. And I know there was some conversation around, if this company's, out to do good, why does this unionization need to take place? And so what are Kickstarter employees hoping for, or what were they kind of going into? What were the goals of unionizing? What are they protecting themselves from, and hoping to gain from this unionization?
Yeah, so I cover labor, and I cover a lot of blue collar tech workers who want unions for very different reasons. Typically, they want, to negotiate their wages. They want benefits. They want control over their working conditions. Like you said, like, things are pretty different for Kickstarter workers. They're well paid. They don't, they have a nice office in Brooklyn. They don't have that much to complain about, it seems. But what's going on at Kickstarter is very similar to what's going on at a lot of other major tech companies like Google and Amazon and GitHub. Like, people are very concerned they have ethical concerns. They have, moral concerns about how their company has been handling certain things. And so Kickstarter employees really want to bring Kickstarter to the table and negotiate so that they have a greater role in decision making on how the platform is moderated, so that like incidences or whole ordeals like the always punch Nazis thing, would be less likely to happen. They also want to have more of a role in the hiring and firing process, bringing more diversity and inclusion into the, sort of integrating those values more clearly into the company because they feel like it's fallen short. They also want to address pay disparity between, different types of groups who they feel like aren't making as much money. Those are their main concerns that I know about. And I think they're pretty much in line with the concerns that you see at other major tech companies where you might think, those people don't really need a union.
Right. Now, speaking of other major tech companies, I mean, this is, I think, an interesting example. We haven't really seen this in the big tech companies yet, though we've heard a lot of murmurings here and there about, labor issues and that sort of stuff. So I imagine there's a lot of attention being kind of focused right now in the industry on what's going on at Kickstarter, especially amongst employees of some of the bigger tech companies. What do you think, what is the path that this paves for other companies, for other employees at some of these other companies that are considering this as one of many options to go in that direction? Do you think they're going to kind of follow this example and we're going to see more of this at the companies like Facebook and Google and that sort of stuff?
That's a really good question. I mean, I don't know what the answer to it is, but I can say that as someone who's written a lot about labor, like, unionization typically happens in waves. So if someone in an industry unionizes, other workers start to think, wow, we are also fed up with our working conditions, and look what they did. Like, we could do that here too. So it sort of builds on momentum. Mm-hmm. At the same time, at these bigger, Kickstarter is a small company, right? It's less than 200 people. At a company like Google or Facebook or Amazon or Microsoft, you're dealing with many more employees. And so it becomes a lot harder. You're dealing with multiple offices across different cities. It becomes a lot harder to organize people. Those companies have a lot of resources, and I can guarantee you none of them will just welcome a union without a really tough uphill battle for workers. I could also say that it seems now that this is just sort of whispers, and I can't say for sure, but it seems like Google workers may be in the process of starting a union campaign based on how much organizing they're doing, based on the fact that Google recently hired an anti-union consulting firm to work with them. So I could see things happening, and Google workers sort of have been leading this activist movement on the white collar worker side of the tech industry. So I could see things, maybe starting to ramp up at Google and other smaller progressive tech firms.
Wow. That the anti-union part, I know that Kickstarter had hired a law firm that was part of that as well. And the claim was that they had done that long before they knew that the union, that there was, mumblings of potentially unionizing. Given that, and given the fact that Kickstarter in the beginning sort of said, we really don't need a union because that's just going to introduce some bad juju between us and our employees. How are they feeling now that this is done and happening?
They came out with a statement saying, the CEO, Aziz Hassan, came out with a statement saying, he's ready to sit down with workers and really listen to their concerns. They haven't said anything that's like, we're not going to recognize the union or we want to challenge it, which they could have done. Yes, you're right that they have been working with a law firm to represent them on these union negotiations that has a record of union busting and that has a record of trying to keep unions out of workplaces. So, I don't see any major signs that they will sort of, put up a fight in terms of recognizing the union and sitting down with the union and seeing what they want. But there also are concerns based on their track record at this point.